Let's talk about corruption, and in particular, the issue of State House corruption. Welcome back to Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk, and I'd love to hear your thoughts as well at 217-629-7970. What do you think? Not just of State House corruption, but of alleged corruption at the White House, something that very much is top of mind for at least congressional Republicans, but the corporate media just seems to keep downplaying all of the evidence that's pouring out of allegations of wrongdoing within the Biden family. But let's start first with what's going on with corruption investigations and trials within the Illinois State House. And in particular, you've got a case here involving Tim Mapes, who is the former chief of staff for former Illinois House Speaker Michael Madigan. And he's charged with lying to investigators and obstruction of justice. And if you recall, last week we talked about how Mapes had made a motion for several pieces of information to be excluded from his trial next month, but you had federal prosecutors file that those motions should be denied because they have to present to the courts evidence of wiretap conversations and more. But let's get to the story from my colleague, Brett Rowland, who got the latest on the back and forth in federal court, saying that a judge rejected a bid from Madigan's former chief of staff to keep mention of his immunity deal out of a trial in which prosecutors allege he failed to keep his end of the deal and lied during grand jury testimony. Tim Mapes served for years under former Illinois House Speaker Michael Madigan as clerk of the Illinois House and as Madigan's chief of staff. In May 2021, federal prosecutors charged Mapes with lying to a grand jury in a federal probe connected to the longtime former House Speaker. U.S. District Judge John Neese denied a motion filed by Mapes' attorney to keep mention of the immunity deal out of the trial. Mapes had argued that portions of the indictment that referred to the immunity agreements were irrelevant and prejudicial, meaning it would have prejudiced the jury as to Mapes. And obviously, this is a pretty important trial moving forward, as you've got Neese saying that like an arrest record, an immunity agreement can essentially change the inference that the witness did something illegal in the past and is likely to do something illegal again. However, the judge said the motion didn't pass the tests, balancing the relevance against the immunity agreement's potential prejudicial effect. The court finds that any potential prejudice is insufficient to justify striking the challenged material from the indictment, the judge wrote in his order filed yesterday. According to the indictment, Mapes acted as a courier exchanging messages between Madigan and former lobbyist and state lawmaker Michael McLean, who worked as a lobbyist for ComEd after retiring from the House. The indictment alleges that Mapes lied to the grand jury, and when asked about Madigan's relationship with McLean, Mapes was fired from his position under Madigan in 2018 after public allegations of harassment against colleagues. An inspector general in 2019 found that Mapes should never be allowed to work for state government again. This is just, of course, one of the several cases that federal prosecutors have brought in the ComEd bribery saga, where you had the ComEd 4 back in April found guilty. And that included Michael McLean and two other lobbyists and a former ComEd official. They were all found guilty in this case. And the next case is the Tim Mapes case, which is going to be in front of a jury next month. And then next year, Michael Madigan faces his corruption allegations, 22 counts of racketeering and bribery and so on. And you've got that's going to be a widely watched case because Madigan wasn't just the House Speaker for a long time. He was also chair of the Democratic Party of Illinois, controlling the Democrat Party purse. So campaign finance that Democrats would tap into, Madigan controlled all of that. So you can see the nexus of power that Madigan had, obviously being problematic when it comes to what kinds of legislation ultimately passed and how that impacts individuals, you, the taxpayer. If special preference is being given to individuals who are giving little to do nothing jobs to Madigan Associates in exchange for favorable legislation. That's the allegation. So obviously that's going to continue moving forward, and that's just one instance of corruption allegations. Some have been founded by a jury, others still awaiting a jury trial. Again, Madigan's pleaded not guilty. He faces trial next year, so we'll be watching that closely as that continues to play out. But with the Tim Mapes trial, what's fascinating is the judge denying Mapes' motion. That means that the federal prosecutors are going to be able to present all kinds of evidence, and they've already revealed a lot of it is going to be wiretaps. So more audio recordings of the entire situation are going to be given to the jury. Pretty sure that we'll be able to tap into that as well after it's presented to a jury. So we'll be airing some of that so that you're better informed about how all this works. But what can we learn from the Madigan corruption allegations and the corruption allegations with Joe Biden? Because you've got more detail coming out as the House Republicans in Washington, D.C. continue moving forward with their investigation and hearing witness testimony. A new hearing is set for, I believe, next week, where you've got Devin Archer, a former associate of Hunter Biden's business dealings, set to testify. We'll touch base on what some of that could be, but also hear from the White House. Asked a question yesterday about an FBI form that was released late last week indicating that Biden, the president, is on tape talking about coercion of a Burisma, Ukrainian gas company executive, forking over $5 million to each Biden and his son Hunter. So we'll touch on all of that. But of course, your phone calls at 217-629-7970. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Yes, Barack Obama became senator because of Michael Madigan. Now, that says a lot right there. You don't become a senator in Illinois without Madigan's blessing.
Yeah, and I think that says a lot as far as Madigan's power in the Democratic Party, right? I mean, he didn't just control what legislation came through. He also controlled very much the funding and the endorsements of very important political actors within the Democratic Party, Barack Obama being one of those.
That's right. They're all criminals. Madigan don't.
Your phone's breaking up a little bit. I think you said they're all criminals. And his phone, yeah, your phone's breaking up. I apologize about that. All right, but so obviously there's a lot here, and as Republicans here in Illinois have said, they could take a master class in corruption just by reviewing what's happened so far in the courts, and we haven't seen the state house. The state house led by Democrats, willing to go down that road and even address the issues that have come forward in this corruption saga. But again, how does this lay into what we better understand about the allegations of corruption with the Bidens? Well, we'll touch on that next here with Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY. Springfield's News. Well, we're talking about corruption, not just at the Illinois State House, but what about the White House? Welcome back, Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. Would love to hear your thoughts at 217-629-7970. That's the phone number where you can chime in on the latest, and you've got the White House responding to House Republicans over in Washington, D.C., laying out a case against Joe Biden. And could this lead to impeachment? That's a good question. But the White House being asked yesterday about the latest revelations that have been put out there. And of course, you've heard from from IRS whistleblowers saying that they were prevented from investigating the vice president, Joe Biden, and his son, Hunter Biden, even though they found all kinds of suspicious activity. So obviously, it's a big issue and something that is not going to go away anytime soon. But here's the White House yesterday. Karine Jean-Pierre responding to a question about this entire situation and not really given much by way of, a strong rebuttal of sorts of what's going on with this ongoing corruption investigation.
Chairman James Comer today says that the Oversight Committee, has evidence that the president in the past communicated directly with foreign business associates of his son Hunter Biden many times. Curious if the White House and the president still stand behind his comment that he's never been involved and has never even spoken to his son about his business.
So I've been asked this question a million times. The answer is not going to change. The answer remains the same. The president was never in business with his son. I just don't have anything else to add.
Okay, was never in business with his son. Well, apparently a House committee is going to hear next week from Devin Archer, a former associate of Hunter Biden. It's expected to say he's familiar with instances in person, experiencing this himself, of Hunter putting his father, then Vice President Joe Biden, on speakerphone whenever they, meet with business associates. So think of that. You go into a business meeting and Hunter Biden's there, and Hunter Biden's got a questionable past with substance abuse and so on. But your question, you're like, is this really the business deal that we want to do? I don't know. And then Hunter Biden grabs his phone and makes a phone call, puts it on speakerphone, puts it down, and says, "All right, let's do a deal." Hi, this is Vice President Joe Biden on the phone. That's the allegation that's going to be made here. I want to hear from you, your thoughts. 217-629-7970. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Yeah, I'm sorry about the lousy phone signal. I drive, so I bounce around a lot. But you can make a direct correlation between Madigan getting Obama elected, because you didn't get elected in this state if you were an upstanding, law-abiding citizen that would take Madigan down. Al Capone didn't hire non-criminals to work for his organization. So that leads directly to Biden being put in charge of Ukraine. It's all tied together. It's the Democrat machine. It's not the Madigan machine. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, so essentially what you're laying out here is that there's a direct correlation with the corruption against Mike Madigan. Again, he's pleaded not guilty to this. However, the ComEd 4 was found guilty. But you're saying there's a direct connection between Democrat politics here in Illinois and Democrat politics nationwide.
Madigan shows who got elected.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate the call. Let's go ahead and get another call here before the break. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Hey, Greg. There's a key thing she said there. They're not in business together. You see, let's say if you're a union boss, you want to bust up a union like a what do you call it? When they're a protest or whatever. They don't hire. They're not in business with the thugs that they have come in and threaten the people that are on the picket line. See, so and that's why she just left it at that. They're not in business together. But then Joe Biden's job was to threaten people to get this money, and then, of course, it got filtered back to him.
Well, and that's something that a recent FBI document revealed that Senator Chuck Grassley put out. Because some of the conventional thinking was, it was just a bribe that went from, Ukrainian gas companies to the Bidens. But this document that was released by Grassley shows and alleges that Joe Biden coerced the utility over in Ukraine to give up to $10 million, $5 million to Hunter, $5 million to Joe. That's the allegation here. Why do you think the corporate media is not all over this, like stink on stuff, if you know what I mean?
Well, I do know what you mean. It's kind of like the same as even locally. We had many people that you're on your party line and you go to extremes to try to convince people of a fantasy or of a fallacy, and then that's why Don Lemon doesn't have a job anymore. And people like him, because they got so ridiculous that the corporate people ahead of the company were like, oh man, people are going to start figuring this out and they're going to dump the whole. They threw off the waste before the whole ship went down, and it's too late because the ship is sinking for some of those left-wing pundits.
I appreciate the call. We'll watch what happens with this. Of course, a lot more expected to come out of the entire saga surrounding the Biden family. And I don't think that's the last we've heard of it. It'll be interesting to see if the corporate media, MSNBC, CNN, ABC, NBC, All of these left-leaning news outlets, are they going to actually do due diligence? And a lot of them have already confirmed the laptop, for instance. But what about the IRS whistleblowers? I mean, Nancy Pelosi said she trusts whistleblowers, just not these whistleblowers. It's amazing the double standard that we have in this country, from the corporate media to the political leaders, and what's considered a scandal and what's not. You would think that coercing a foreign company to hand over bribes to you and your family, you would think that would be wall-to-wall coverage and something that just would be every single question at a White House press briefing. But it wasn't. Yesterday's press briefing, there was just one question about this. Karine Jean-Pierre said, denial, that's all I have to say. Every other question was about race politics and the southern border and the fight between Texas Governor Greg Abbott and the Department of Justice. Every other question was about, curriculum in school about Black history and how the White House is managing this and that. And one question about the pay-to-play coercion allegations speaks volumes. It speaks volumes. It's pretty remarkable. All right.